London, in the spring of 1891, was at once tranquil and restless. The air carried the familiar perfume of horse-drawn carriages, coal smoke, and the murmuring hum of a great city whose heart never ceased its ceaseless throb. It was during this season, so calm for most men, that I, Dr. John Watson, was drawn once more into the tempestuous orbit of my great friend, Mr. Firebite, Sherlock Holmes. Many tales I have set down concerning our adventures together, some trifling, others grave, none more dark, but none has weighed upon me with the same heaviness as the account I am about to deliver. It is the story of Holmes's most formidable adversary, the very Napoleon of crime. I had thought my practice, and the modest happiness of a quiet domestic life might distance me from the wild adventures that once dominated my youth. Yet fate had other designs. Summer the ham, one evening, while engaged with papers at my consulting room, I was startled by a sudden and hurried knock upon the door. When I opened it, there stood Holmes himself, his figure tall, gaunt, and his face pale as parchment. His keen grey eyes, however, burned with an intensity I had rarely seen, even at the height of a case.
Watson, you must pack your bag at once. We have no moment to lose. I am in peril, and by extension, so are you.
My dear Holmes, peril, you alarm me. Come and pray, and explain yourself. He brushed past me into the room, casting a swift glance through the window as if to assure himself we had not been followed. His hands trembled slightly, though his voice retained its iron firmness.
The matter is simple in essence, though vast in consequence. You know well my profession has drawn me into contact with the criminal underworld of London. But behind all the petty thieves, swindlers, and murderers, there is one man, one calculating mind that directs and organizes. That man is Professor James Moriarty.
Moriarty, the name has been whispered in police circles, though never with certainty. You mean to say he truly exists?
Exists? My dear fellow, he exists with a reality as palpable as the very chair upon which you sit. He is the organizing force of half the evil in this city. I have faced him through webs of conspiracy so intricate that even I, with my method of deduction, have scarce kept pace. But now the matter has reached its culmination. He knows I stand against him, and he seeks nothing less than my annihilation.
I confess, my heart sank at his words. For Holmes to admit to fear was astonishing. To see his drawn features and restless manner convinced me the danger was imminent and mortal. Then what must we do, Holmes? Surely Scotland Yard.
Useless, Watson. Moriarty is too powerful, too well protected. He moves as an unseen hand, his agents everywhere. It is not the police who may shield us now. It is strategy, speed, and your unwavering loyalty. That is why I came to you this very night.
He paused, and in that silence I felt the very room thicken with gravity. Then, with sudden determination, he resumed,
I have arranged for us to leave England. Switzerland shall be our sanctuary, at least for a time. But before we depart, I must place in safe hands the evidence I have gathered. It is enough to shatter Moriarty's empire, if only it survives.
Holmes, you have ever trusted me, and I swear my loyalty has not diminished since the day we first shared quarters at Baker Street. Whatever your peril, I shall not forsake you.
I knew I could rely upon you, Watson. Your devotion is the one constant in this sea of treachery. Very well. Prepare yourself for a journey. We leave under cover of dawn.
Thus began the most fateful adventure of our partnership. That night, though my wife Mary looked upon me with anxious eyes, she uttered not a word of reproach. She understood, as few wives might, that when Holmes called, my duty was clear. With a heavy heart, I packed my belongings, uncertain whether I would ever see my home again. At daybreak, I joined Holmes at Baker Street. The rooms, usually cluttered with chemical apparatus, maps, and monographs, were curiously bare. Holmes had destroyed many of his notes, burned letters, and set all in grim order, as though preparing for a siege.
Watson, observe. I have left no trace that may aid my enemies. Even now, Moriarty has set his hounds upon us. We must be swift and cautious.
We descended into the street, a thick fog curling about the gas lamps. No sooner had we hailed a cab than Holmes gripped my arm and whispered,
Do not look back suddenly, Watson, but we are watched. A man with a heavy moustache, pretending to like his pipe, stands across the way. He has lingered there since last evening.
You astonished me, Holmes. I had not noticed him at all.
Elementary. His boots carry the red dust of Charing Cross Station, though we are far removed from that quarter. He has trailed me persistently. Come, inside the cab, quickly.
The driver whipped his horse forward, and we rattled away into the fog-bound streets. Cabells. My pulse quickened, and I glanced nervously through the rear window. Indeed, I caught a glimpse of another hansom following at a measured distance. They pursue us still, Holmes. What shall we do?
We shall test their patience. Driver, take us to Victoria Station by way of Belgrave Square, and do not spare your whip.
The cabby gave a nod, and the horse lunged forward. We sped through London at a furious pace, the wheels clattering against cobblestones. At each turn, Holmes directed fresh routes, sometimes doubling back, sometimes circling aimlessly, until at last, with satisfaction, he leaned back.
They have lost us for the moment. Yet it is only a reprieve. Moriarty himself may soon be upon us. He is not a man to trust underlings with his most vital task.
Kabub, heute fought us in person.
Precisely so, Watson. And when that hour comes, it shall be a struggle of intellects, of will, and perhaps of life itself.
I confess, I shivered. For Holmes to speak thus, in tones grave and final, was to hear the tolling of a bell before a storm. And yet, through all my apprehension, there arose a strange exultation to stand beside him in such an hour, to share in the greatest contest of his remarkable career, seemed both terrible and sublime. At Victoria Station, Holmes arranged our tickets with careful discretion. We boarded the train bound for Dover, intending to cross the Channel into France. Once ensconced within the compartment, Holmes drew forth a small leather case and handed it to me.
Watson, within this case are the documents that will topple Moriarty. Should I fall before this contest is ended, I charge you to deliver them to Inspector Patterson at Scotland Yard. Swear it, Watson.
I swear it, Holmes, upon my honor as a doctor and as your friend. He pressed my hand warmly, though his eyes betrayed no sentiment. Instead, they gleamed with a cold fire of calculation. He was already 3 moves ahead, as ever, in the deadly chess game he played with the unseen professor. The train surged forward with a hiss of steam, bearing us away from London and into the unknown. Outside the window, the countryside swept past in a blur of fields and hedgerows, but within, my mind wrestled with foreboding. Holmes sat motionless, his chin resting upon his hands, his gaze fixed upon some invisible horizon. Conservatus. I dared not disturb him, for I knew he was constructing step by step the strategy that would decide our fate. Thus began our flight across Europe, pursued by the shadow of Moriarty himself, a chase that would end, though I could not yet know it, in the most solemn and dreadful climax of our shared adventures. The iron wheels carried us swiftly to Dover, and thence across the Channel to Calais. The sea air was sharp, bracing, and restless, as if echoing the tension that now defined our every step. Holmes, though pale and weary, bore himself with the calm of a man who has chosen his ground. For myself, I confess I could not shake the sensation that we were shadows moving across Europe, hunted by something monstrous and unseen. Holmes, your nerves astonish me. We are pursued, perhaps unto death, yet you sit as serenely as though upon an afternoon outing to Hampton Court.
My dear Watson, serenity is the armor of calculation. The moment one allows fear to intrude, judgment falters. Observe the sailors on deck. See how the nervous man loses his step upon the gangway, while the seasoned hand walks firm, though the waves toss about him. In this matter, I must be the seasoned hand.
It was difficult not to admire his composure. We candid beaver, Tenshua. Though I read the subtle marks of strain upon his features, his eyes roved ceaselessly, noting every traveller, every porter, every shadow that lingered too long. Once upon the continent, our course took us through Paris by a circuitous route. Holmes insisted upon changing cabs thrice before reaching the Gare de Lyon. Each transfer was abrupt, as if to shake some invisible tail. And indeed, on more than one occasion, I caught a glimpse of a face or figure that seemed strangely familiar, though vanished at the next corner. Holmes, did you note the tall fellow in the grey ulster, the one who carried a heavy cane? I swear he loitered at both Montmartre and again here at the station.
Excellent, Watson. Your observational faculties sharpen by the day. Why is that fellow is one of Moriarty's agents? Note the limp in his right leg, caused, no doubt, by a misadventure some months ago. Such men are like marks upon a chessboard. They reveal their master's hand.
But surely, Holmes, we cannot elude them forever. If they dog us at each step,
Fear not, my friend. It is precisely what I desire. Let them strain and stumble after us across the breadth of Europe. So long as we dictate the field of battle, the advantage remains ours.
with such words, he infused me with confidence. Though my heart remained troubled, we boarded the night express bound for Geneva, the train thundering through the dark countryside. Within the dimly lit compartment, Holmes settled himself with an air of grim content, while I gazed uneasily at the corridor, half expecting the door to burst open at any moment. Holmes, if I may ask, what is it that makes Moriarty so singular among criminals? There are men of violence, men of cunning, men of wealth, but you speak of him as though he was some dark genius beyond all others.
And so he is, Watson. He is Watson. Picture a mathematician of supreme gifts, whose mind, if turned to the advancement of science, might rival Newton or Gauss. Instead, imagine that intellect turned wholly to evil, applied to the manipulation of men, money, and opportunity. That, Watson, is Professor Moriarty. He is the unseen brain at the heart of 1,000 crimes. When one thief robs a bank, Moriarty has calculated the disposition of the funds. When a blackmailer strikes, Moriarty supplies the information. He is the spider at the center of a vast web, and all the threads converge upon him.
Then you, Holmes, are the one man who has dared to pluck at that web.
Precisely. And for that, he would see me destroyed.
There was a silence between us then, broken only by the steady rumble of the train. At length, Holmes leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper.
Watson, I do not exaggerate when I say this contest may be my last. I should regret nothing, save perhaps the grief it may cause my few true friends. Should fate take me, you must live on and live well.
Holmes, you speak as though your doom were already sealed. I cannot accept it. Surely, with your skill, with my assistance,
Hush, my dear fellow, your loyalty warms me more than I can express. Oh, yet remember, even the keenest blade may break when struck by an equal force.
I could not reply. My throat closed with emotion, for never had Holmes spoken so plainly of his mortality. As the train sped onward, there came suddenly a commotion in the corridor. Shout, the clatter of feet, and the door to our compartment was wrenched open. Commode. A tall man in a traveling cloak lunged inside, his face half shadowed by the lamp.
You cannot escape him, Mr. Holmes. The Professor's grasp reaches even here.
Before I could rise, Holmes was already upon him, swift as a striking hawk. With one hand, he seized the man's wrist, wrenching away the revolver he carried. With the other, he thrust him back against the wall.
Fix the cord! Quickly!
I snatched my valise strap, and between us we bound the fellow's arms. He spat curses and twisted violently, but Holmes's iron grip subdued him.
As I thought, a mere pawn, one of Moriarty's less gifted retainers sent to test the line. Observe, Watson, the ink stain upon his fingers. Our friend here is no professional thug, but a clerk, likely employed to carry messages and instructions.
You think you can win, Mr. Holmes, but the Professor is everywhere. He knows each step you take. He will crush you as sure as the dawn.
Convey my compliments to your master, should you survive this journey, and tell him that though he may chase me to the ends of the earth, I shall choose the place of our reckoning.
We left the fellow bound until the train halted at Dijon, where Holmes, with curt instructions to the gendarmes, consigned him to the local authorities. Yet though we continued on, I could not dismiss the echo of his words. Holmes, surely this proves the reach of Moriarty. If even clerks and errand boys may serve as assassins, what safety can we hope for?
None, save in our own resourcefulness. But mark this, Watson. Moriarty himself grows impatient. He will not rest content with pawns. Soon, very soon, he must take the field himself.
By the following evening, we reached Switzerland, jerked Sean. The serene mountains rising about us in solemn majesty gleamed upon distant peaks, and the air was crisp with alpine purity. It seemed almost a mockery, this grandeur of nature, set against the dark pursuit that drove us. Holmes, however, appeared invigorated. His cheeks flushed faintly, and his eyes lit with something like joy as he surveyed the towering summits.
Behold, Watson, the true cathedral of nature. These mountains are beyond the petty schemes of men. Yet it may be upon such ground that our final act must be played.
Go. You speak in riddles, Holmes. Do you mean?
Patience, my friend, for now let us rest. Tomorrow may bring the conclusion of all things.
That night, in the quiet inn at Muringen, I watched Holmes by the firelight. He had taken out his violin, and with delicate fingers, he played a melody so haunting and mournful that it seemed the very voice of destiny. I knew then, though I dared not admit it even to myself, that the shadow of Moriarty loomed nearer with each passing hour. The morning after arrival in Switzerland dawned bright, the air crisp and clean with the scent of pine and melting snow. From the window of our modest inn at Meiringen, I could see the distant sparkle of waterfalls plunging into green valleys, the peaks glistening like white sentinels against a sky of piercing blue. Such beauty might soothe the spirit of any traveler, yet my heart was restless, for Holmes's words of the previous evening, spoken with such gravity, continued to echo in my ears. Tomorrow may bring the conclusion of all things. Holmes, the mountains are magnificent, but I fear you do not look upon them as a naturalist would. You watch them as though they were pieces upon your chessboard waiting for some great move.
Yes, Deanly observed Watson. Ha 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 ha. These peaks, these valleys, they are the stage upon which a great drama must soon unfold. A drama between Moriarty and myself, from which one of us shall not return.
Holmes, I beg you, do not speak so plainly of death. We have outwitted Moriarty thus far. Surely in this land of peace we may yet find refuge.
Refuge? My dear fellow, no place on earth may shelter me while Moriarty lives. I have struck at his empire. I have torn down his carefully woven webs. His organization trembles. The man himself must act or lose all he has built. It is his pride as much as his safety that demands my destruction.
Before I could reply, a knock sounded at the door. The innkeeper entered, his face flushed with nervousness.
Pardon, gentlemen. A visitor waits below, a tall gentleman, severe of countenance. He insists upon speaking with Mr. Sherlock Holmes at once.
A visitor? Here, in this remote place? Holmes, can it be?
Indeed, Watson, the hour strikes sooner than I anticipated. Show him up, my good man.
A moment later, the door opened, and there stood the very figure I had dreaded, yet longed to behold, Professor James Moriarty. He was tall, gaunt, with a high, domed forehead that bespoke intellect of the first order. His eyes were deep-set, sharp, and glittered with a light that was both piercing and malignant. His thin lips curved into a smile that carried no warmth, only the chill of calculation.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, how fortunate that we meet at last upon neutral ground.
Professor Moriarty, your courtesy in calling is most remarkable, considering the circumstances. Pray, be seated.
Moriarty moved with quiet grace, though there was a serpent-like quality to his every gesture. He sat opposite Holmes, folding his long hands together as though a scholar about to deliver a lecture.
You have meddled in my affairs to an intolerable degree, Mr. Holmes. For months you have dismantled my organization, piece by piece. You leave me little choice.
Choice, Professor, is ever the measure of a man. You might have chosen the path of honor to apply your genius for the benefit of mankind. Instead, you have woven yourself into a web of crime. And now that web unravels.
Words, Holmes, mere words. You stand alone, far from the protection of your England, far from your meddling inspectors. I offer you now one chance. Withdraw. Cease your interference. Retire from this pursuit, and you may yet live.
And if I refuse?
Then you die.
Sir, to threaten murder so brazenly.
Peace, Doctor. This is no common crime of alley and gutter. This is a duel of intellects. Your friend knows as well as I that the world is not large enough for both of us. One must fall.
You are correct, Professor. One must fall, but it shall not be I.
The silence that followed was thick as stone. Two men, so alike in their brilliance, so opposed in their morals, regarded one another as gladiators before combat. I felt the very air tremble with the force of their intellects.
Very well, Mr. Holmes. If you will not yield, then we are bound for the precipice together. I shall pursue you to the ends of the earth until either you or I are no more. Remember that when next we meet.
With that, he rose, his figure towering and sinister in the small chamber. With a cold inclination of the head, he turned and departed, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Holmes, that man, he's a devil incarnate. Never have I seen such malignancy cloaked in intellect.
Yet you must admit, Watson, he is a worthy opponent, the very acme of criminal genius. Do you not see? In him my science finds its equal, and therein lies both peril and fascination.
Fascination? You speak as though you welcome the contest.
In truth, I do. What is life without the challenge of the utmost? Yet mark me, Watson, this game cannot last. One more encounter will decide all.
And so the die was cast. That very afternoon, Holmes suggested a walk to view the famous Reichenbach Falls, a cascade of thunderous water said to be among the most sublime sights of Switzerland. The innkeeper, a stout fellow of earnest manners, recommended the path and promised that our luggage would be safe until our return. The road wound upwards through pine forests, where the air rang with birdsong, and out upon ledges where the valley stretched in vast splendor below. I should have delighted in the grandeur of the scene, yet my mind was darkened by foreboding. Holmes walked with steady stride, his keen eyes fixed ahead, as though already anticipating the feat of his final battle. Holmes, forgive me, but this excursion seems reckless. If Moriarty follows,
Just so, Watson, it is precisely here that he shall follow. And it is here, perhaps, that the account between us shall be settled.
at a bend of the path we paused to rest, gazing at the valley spread beneath us. Holmes spoke then in a low voice, almost as though communing with himself.
Consider, Watson, how nature herself mirrors the struggle of man. These mountains, born of fire and upheaval, stand eternal. Yet the river cuts ceaselessly, carving away even the hardest stone. It is the contest between endurance and persistence, each inevitable, each irresistible.
And you liken yourself to the river, Holmes?
Or perhaps to the stone, Watson. Time will decide which yields.
His words chilled me, though the sun shone warm upon the heights. I could not shake the certainty that destiny had already chosen its stage. The roar of the unseen waterfall, faint but insistent, grew louder as we pressed onward. It seemed to call to us, a summons from fate itself. Thus we approached the Reichenbach Falls, not knowing whether we walked toward wonder or doom. The path narrowed as we climbed higher, until it became little more than a rugged ledge carved into the mountainside. Ahead, the sound of rushing water deepened to a thunderous roar, a voice of nature that seemed to grow with each step. At last, turning a sharp bend, the spectacle burst upon us, the Reichenbach Falls. A colossal torrent leapt from the heights above, plunging into an abyss so deep the eye could scarcely follow. Clouds of spray rose in perpetual mist, catching the sunlight and casting fleeting rainbows across the chasm. Air trembled with the roar, as though the mountains themselves exhaled their breath in ceaseless fury. Holmes, it is magnificent, terrible in its grandeur. I scarce can hear my own voice above its tumult.
A fitting place, Watson, for the meeting of two minds that cannot exist together. Mark the violence of the fall, how it tears at the rock, yet is itself dissolved into spray. So may it be with men such as Moriarty and myself.
I shuddered at his words, and would have spoken further when a boy approached along the path, his clothes rough, his face earnest. He bore a note which he pressed into my hand.
Please, sir, from the innkeeper. It is urgent.
I unfolded it quickly. The message stated that an English lady at the inn lay gravely ill and required my medical assistance at once. Holmes, I must go back. There is a lady in peril. Perhaps her life depends upon immediate aid.
Go then, my dear Watson. A doctor's duty is sacred. I should remain here for a time to contemplate the grandeur of the place. Join me when you may.
I hesitated, for the thought of leaving him alone filled me with dread. But his eyes were calm, and his smiles bore no trace of fear. Then the you well. Very well, Holmes, but promise me, take no unnecessary risk.
I promise nothing, Watson, save that I shall do what destiny demands.
With reluctant steps, I turned back down the path, the roar of the waterfall fading behind me. I quickened my pace, eager to reach the inn and return swiftly. Yet upon my arrival, I discovered the message to be a ruse. No lady lay ill. The innkeeper knew nothing of it. Great heavens, I have been tricked, drawn away from Holmes at the very hour of peril. Heart leapt with alarm. I seized my stick and raced back along the trail, my breath short, my limbs trembling with exertion. The roar of the Reichenbach grew louder once more, and soon I reached the fatal bend. The place was deserted. Holmes was gone. Upon the ground near the brink of the abyss lay two sets of footprints, Holmes's and another's. They led to the very edge of the precipice, where the wet earth bore the marks of a struggle. The footprints ended abruptly at the verge. No, it cannot be. Holmes, Holmes. My voice was swallowed by the roar of the torrent. In despair, I looked about me, and there upon a boulder I espied a scrap of paper, weighted by Holmes's cigarette case. Trembling hands I unfolded it.
My dear Watson, I write these few lines in the hope that they may reach you. I have been forced to meet Professor Moriarty at the very edge of this fall. He is determined that our contest end here. I shall endeavor to accept his challenge, for it is better thus than to drag innocent lives into peril. Do not grieve, my friend. Your steadfast companionship has been the greatest honor of my life. Should I fall, remember me not with sorrow, but with pride that we stood together in so many battles for justice. Farewell, Sherlock Holmes.
The words blurred before my eyes as tears overcame me. I staggered to the edge and gazed into the abyss where the spray rose in ghostly veils. Nothing could be seen save the furious waters crashing upon the rocks below. No human force could survive such a descent. Holmes, my friend, gone. My knees gave way, and I sank upon the stones, my heart torn with grief. The memory of our years together, our shared lodgings at Baker Street, the countless adventures, his sharp voice declaring, "Elementary, my dear Watson," all came rushing upon me with cruel vividness. Yet even in my despair, I knew the truth. Holmes had chosen his ground, had accepted his destiny, and had gone to meet it with the same courage and clarity with which he had faced every danger. I lingered there long, until the fading sun cast shadows across the valley. At last, with leaden steps, I returned to the inn, carrying with me the note, the final testament of the greatest man I have ever known. The journey back to London was the longest of my life. Each mile that carried me further from the Reichenbach Falls deepened the weight upon my heart. The roar of that terrible torrent seemed to echo still in my ears, mingled with the memory of Holmes's final words, etched upon the page he had left for me. At every station, at every passing face, I half expected to see his tall figure stride toward me, his keen eyes alight with triumph, declaring the adventure solved and the danger past. But no such figure came, only the empty compartments, the echo of footsteps upon foreign platforms, and the ceaseless ache of absence. I should have been there, Holmes. I should have stood by your side as I vowed in countless battles before. That cruel trick lured me away, leaving you alone, and now the world is poorer by your loss. I returned to Baker Street in silence. The familiar rooms were just as we had left them. Holmes's chemical apparatus upon the shelves, the violin resting by the window, the Persian slipper stuffed with tobacco in its accustomed place. Yet the spirit that had animated it all was gone. The rooms seemed mere shadows, haunted by his absence. I delivered the case of papers to Scotland Yard, as Holmes had instructed. Inspector Patterson, though staggered by the revelations within, could not grasp the magnitude of the man we had lost. The public, of course, knew little. They read a few lines in the newspapers about a celebrated detective lost abroad and soon turned their attention to the next scandal or sensation. But I knew. And I could not rest without setting down the truth that the world might understand the measure of the man who had walked among them. Holmes was not merely a machine of deduction, nor a cold reasoner untouched by human feeling, as some believed. He was the most loyal of friends, the most unselfish of companions, gave his life willingly that others might be spared the terror of Professor Moriarty's reign. He was, in truth, the very embodiment of courage. As the weeks passed, I found myself recalling the countless lessons he had imparted. How often had he drawn me to the window at Baker Street, pointing out some trifling detail of a passerby, and from it unfolding an entire history? How often had I marveled at his deductions, only to hear his familiar phrase,
Elementary, my dear Watson.
that phrase echoes still, as though whispered from the past, a reminder of the brilliance that once illuminated my life. Holmes, wherever you are, whether your spirit lingers in those alpine heights or whether it has passed beyond our knowing, I remain your friend, your companion, your chronicler. I owe you more than words can tell. And so I set down this record that the world may not forget Sherlock Holmes. Let it be known that at the Reichenbach Falls he met his equal in intellect, and there with fearless heart he gave battle, the two greatest minds of the age locked together and gone. Yet though his body may be lost to the torrent, his spirit endures. In every case where justice triumphs over crime, in every moment where truth conquers deceit, there lives something of Holmes, and I, John H. Watson, shall carry his memory until my last breath. Kerr, the world may never look upon his like again, but those who knew him, who walked beside him through the fog of London, through the perils of crime and the labyrinth of mystery, they will remember. Always. Farewell, my friend. Farewell, Sherlock Holmes.